Imagine a world where summer was a myth and the wind was a sharp blade of ice. Welcome to the White Hell. 10,000 years of unrelenting frost. A time when the earth became a beautiful, lethal trap for every living soul. From the ruins of a warmer world, giants emerged, walking mountains of fur and bone that refused to surrender. This is the story of the Great Pleistocene Freeze, a biological war for survival against the absolute zero, the woolly mammoth, a biological fortress. 5 tons of insulation designed to thrive where everything else dies. Their tusks were giant snowplows, reaching for the dry grass hidden beneath the permafrost. Every mouthful was a victory. In the White Hell, starvation was a more patient killer than any predator. But where the giants moved, the nightmares followed. Meet the ghost of the ridge, the Smilodon. It was the ultimate ambush machine, built for explosive power rather than the long-distance chase. Its canines were 18 centimeters of fragile, lethal bone designed to find the softest arteries. One strike to the throat, one moment of silence. The ice would do the rest of the work. The Pleistocene night was a wall of black ice. Survival was a gamble with the moving shadows. But there was a monster that even the Saber-Toothed feared, the giant short-faced bear. It was a long-legged scavenger that could run down a horse and crush its skull with one blow. Its nose was a high-tech sensor, smelling decay from 10 miles away through the freezing wind. The war for meat was absolute. Scavenging was a battle of the heavyweights in a world of bone. The dire wolves, masters of the pack. They didn't have the size, but they had the numbers and the stamina. They would follow a wounded giant for days, waiting for the cold to drain its final strength. When they struck, it was a machine of precision. Constant nips at the heels, bleeding the titan. The fall of a mammoth was the sound of the world ending. A mountain of meat that fed 1,000. Let's meet the woolly rhino, a 2-ton tank of the tundra, the most irritable creature of the ice. It used its horn to sweep away snow, but also to impale anything that crossed its path. Their skin was leathery armor, covered in a dense coat of coarse reddish-brown hair. The Pleistocene was also the era of the ground sloths, knuckle-walking monsters the size of elephants. They were the slow titans of the south, moving to the edge of the ice in search of ancestral dales. But the true masters of the Ice Age were arriving. Small, hairless, and armed with a new kind of fire. We were the ultimate disruptors, the invaders of the 10,000-year-old balance. We didn't hunt with teeth. We hunted with strategy, traps, and the collective memory of the tribe. The war between man and mammoth was the beginning of our rule, and their eventual silence. This was the turning point. The ice was no longer the only king. Intelligence was the new apex. The Earth's tilt pushed the world into a deep freeze. The oceans dropped. New land appeared. The Bering land bridge, a highway for monsters to cross between the worlds of Asia and America. This was the first globalized war. Species from all over the world clashing in a new frozen theater. But sudden warmings, the great melt, were coming to destroy the giants' habitat forever. The steppe was turning into forest. The giants couldn't adapt. They were built for the cold, not the wet. Their specialized diet was vanishing. The war of the ice was being lost to the arrival of the sun. Let's meet the American lion. Larger than any lion today, it was the super predator of the western plains. It was a high-speed hunter, using open spaces to run down its prey before the wolves could arrive. The competition for meat was so intense that predators began to hunt each other in a cycle of violence. The Ice Age was reaching its tipping point. The era of the mega-mammals was screaming its final song. Welcome to the Brea tar pits, a natural factory of death that preserved the terror of the Ice Age for eternity. One animal would get stuck, its screams for help acting as a dinner bell for every predator in the valley. It is a time capsule of a massacre. Thousands of skeletons piled 10 deep in the suffocating black silence. This is how we know the truth of the White Hell. Every step was a high-stakes gamble with life itself. But even the giants had to face the smallest survivors, the insects of the ice, silent witnesses to the apocalypse. They carried natural antifreeze in their blood, thriving in the gargantuan shadows of the mammoth's frozen footprints. The biology of the Pleistocene was a miracle of extreme engineering, from the microbug to the 5-ton titan. But the planet's internal rhythm was shifting. The 10,000-year freeze was nearing its final warmest day. The ice was retreating, and for the monsters of the cold, there was nowhere left to run. Their world was vanishing. This was the White Hell. A story of fur, frost, and the ultimate end of the giants. To survive here, you needed more than just thick fur. You needed a heart that could beat in the heart of a blizzard. The mammoth's blood was a chemical marvel, designed to release oxygen even when the limbs were near freezing. Their ears were small, reduced to tiny flaps to prevent the frostbite that would claim any other creature. Every inch of their body was a fortress. But even a fortress can be breached by the right weapon. The human hunters didn't hunt for sport. They hunted to stay alive in a world that wanted them dead. They used the landscape itself as a weapon, driving the giants toward hidden ice pits and narrow canyons. In the chaos of the hunt, the line between man and beast blurred into a single bloody struggle for the future. A single kill could feed a tribe for months and provide the bones to build their only shelter. We were the children of the giants, living inside the skeletons of the gods we had slain. But we were not the only scavengers. The bone-crushing hyenas were always waiting for our leftovers. They possessed jaws strong enough to shatter a mammoth's femur, leaving nothing but dust for the wind to carry. In the White Hell, there is no waste. Every calorie is fought for with tooth, nail, and stone. Let's look at the woolly rhino once more. A 2-ton beast that lived a solitary, angry life on the edge of the world. Its front horn was not a spike, but a blade, wide and flat, used to sweep away the snow like a scythe. It was a specialist of the Tundra steppe, surviving where even the mammoths feared to tread. But even the rhino was prey to the ultimate team, the cave lions. They were the ghosts of the steppe, larger than any modern lion, and built for a world of 0-degree warfare. Their strategy was endurance. They would harass the rhino for hours, preventing it from resting or eating. When the rhino finally collapsed from exhaustion, the feast would draw every predator for 50 miles. This was the rhythm of the Pleistocene, a constant exchange of energy between the frozen land and the warm blood. As the centuries passed, the ice began its final, violent push south, the last glacial maximum. The oceans were so low that you could walk from London to Paris across a dry, frozen valley. This was the peak of the White Hell, a world where life reached its most extreme, most beautiful, and most lethal forms. But every kingdom built on ice is destined to melt. The sun was about to reclaim the earth. The great melt was coming, and for the fur-covered kings, it would be a disaster worse than any blizzard. Rivers of meltwater carved through the permafrost, turning the giant's kingdom into a labyrinth of mud. The mammoths were trapped. Their heavy feet, once perfect for hard ice, were now anchors in the sucking mud. The war of the ice was being lost to the arrival of the flood. The era of the giants was drowning. We, the humans, watched from the hills. The changing world was our greatest opportunity. The white hell was ending. But a new, even more violent era was about to begin. The era of man. The retreat of the ice was a slow, agonizing process. A war fought between the rising sun and the stubborn frost. New monsters emerged from the southern edges. Meet the Glyptodon, a 1-ton ball of solid biological iron. Its shell was composed of 1,000 bony plates, fused together to create a dome that no Saber-Toothed could crack. At the end of its tail was a heavy, spiked club, a weapon of defense that could shatter a lion's skull in a single swing. This was the era of the megatanks, when life traded speed for the absolute security of bone and horn. But the true heavyweight champion of the Pleistocene was the Megatherium, the giant ground sloth. Standing 6 meters tall, it looked like a mountain that had learned how to walk on its knuckles. It was a peaceful giant until it was provoked. Then it became a machine of bone-crushing violence. Its tail was a massive third leg, providing a stable platform for the giant to fight any predator that dared to approach. The war of the Pleistocene was moving from the plains to the forests. A change in terrain meant a change in tactics. Meet the American Mastodon, the forest-dwelling cousin of the Mammoth, built for the deep shadows of the woods. They ate leaves and twigs, their teeth designed like heavy-duty grinders to process the toughest wood. While the Mammoth belonged to the wind and the snow, the Mastodon was the king of the green and the gray. In the deep forests, the Smilodon found its perfect hunting ground. The shadows were its greatest ally. The Saber-Toothed was a master of the grapple and kill. It didn't chase. It collided with the force of a falling rock. Its bite was a precise instrument of death, aimed at the softest, most vulnerable part of the prey's anatomy. But the forest was full of rivals. The American cheetah was the fastest creature in the white hell. It evolved to hunt the fleet-footed pronghorn, a race for survival that lasted for thousands of years. These high-speed chases were the blueprints of speed for the modern world. Evolution perfected the sprint here. As the climate continued to warm, the Mammoth steppe began to disappear. A global collapse of the old ways. The giants were losing their highway. The land bridges were being swallowed by the rising sea. We, the humans, were the only ones who could cross the rising waters. We were the masters of the boat and the spear. We followed the whales and the seals, using the ocean as our new hunting ground in the changing world. The war for the Ice Age was now a war for the coastline, a new frontier of blood and salt. But the ghosts of the giants were still everywhere. The mammoths were making their final stand in the north. Their fur was getting thinner. Their tusks were breaking more often. The stress of extinction was written on their bodies. The great squeeze had begun. Less food, more humans, and a world that no longer belonged to the cold. In these final hunts, we used fire not just to protect ourselves, but to shape the very landscape of the war. We were the apex architects, rebuilding the world in our own image, one spear at a time. Let's meet the Castoroids, the giant beaver of North America. A rodent the size of a black bear. It didn't build small dams. It built massive wooden fortresses that changed the flow of entire river systems. These beavers were the engineers of the Pleistocene wetlands, creating habitats for thousands of other species. But as the lakes dried up, these giant rodents became easy targets for the hungry saber-tooths. The War of the Wetlands was a struggle for the last remaining patches of mud and shade. Every death in the water provided a feast for the prehistoric catfish, scavengers that grew to massive sizes. The Pleistocene was a world of hypersize. Every family of animals had a giant version of itself. But size is a luxury that requires a stable world, and the world of the White Hell was anything but stable. The seasons were becoming erratic. False springs, followed by deadly winters that killed the young of every species. The extinction was not a single bang. It was a slow, agonizing theft of life, one cold night at a time. The era of the fur-covered gods was ending. The sun was the winner of the 10,000-year war. 10,000 years into the deep freeze, a new sound began to echo across the tundra. Not a roar, but a voice. We were the weak ones. No claws, no fur, no fangs. But we carried a weapon the giants couldn't understand. Obsidian, sharper than any saber-tooth's fang. A surgical blade capable of slicing through 3 layers of mammoth hide. In 2026, we have found these blades still embedded in the ribs of fallen giants. Silent witnesses to our first wars. We were pack hunters, just like the wolves. But our pack was bound by stories, fire, and the drive to conquer. Fire was our first great victory. It was a piece of the sun, trapped in our hands to keep the night at bay. To the Smilodon watching from the darkness, fire was an alien horror, a barrier that broke the laws of the hunt. We used fire to reshape the world. Huge sections of the forest were burned to create open killing fields for our spears. The atlatl, or spear thrower. It turned a human arm into a high-speed catapult, doubling the force of the strike. At 60 miles per hour, the spear didn't just hit. It penetrated the heart of a mammoth from 30 yards away. But the giants didn't die easily. A wounded mammoth was a mountain of rage that could crush a dozen men. This was the death dance of the Pleistocene, a high-stakes battle between biology and technology. When the king of the ice fell, the tribe didn't just eat, they celebrated. A ritual of life stolen from the cold. We used every part, the meat for fuel, the skin for warmth, and the bones for the foundations of our lives. Mammoth bone huts. Some were built from the remains of over 90 individual mammoths. A city of bone. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of fat lamps and the stories of the ancestors, our first libraries. But as we expanded, we brought a new terror to the ancient ecosystems. Domestication, the first alliance. The wolf became the dog, the ultimate tracker. Together, we were a hunting machine that no animal could escape. With the dogs as our eyes and ears, the Pleistocene's apex predators were suddenly outclassed. The hunters were hunted. We pushed the Saber-Tooths into the mountains. We drove the cave lions into the deep caves. We stole their world. Let's look at the Ice Age art. The first time life looked at itself and decided to record the terror. These weren't just toys. They were spiritual maps, a way to control the spirits of the monsters we feared. The Cave of Altamira, the Sistine Chapel of the Pleistocene, a record of a world that was about to vanish. Every drawing is a memory of a kill. Every line is a tribute to the power of the White Hell. But the ice was dying. The planet was tilting back toward the sun. The Holocene was waiting in the shadows. The great floods began. Sudden releases of glacial lakes that changed the map of the world in a single day. Doggerland, a vast country between Britain and Germany, swallowed by the North Sea in a terrifying surge. The humans who lived there had to run for their lives. A mass migration of the first climate refugees. The giants were trapped, the forests were closing in, and the open steppe, their only food source, was drowning. This was the end of the 180 million years of reptilian and mammalian giants. The world was becoming small. Let's look at the last stand on Wrangel Island, a pocket of the Ice Age that survived for thousands of years. Here, the last mammoths lived. They were smaller, stunted by inbreeding and the lack of resources. Dwarf giants. While the pyramids were being built in Egypt, the last of the Ice Age kings were still breathing on this rock. But the island was a prison. When the last mammoth died, the dynasty that ruled for millions of years was finally extinct. They didn't go out with a bang. They went out with a quiet, frozen sigh in the dark. Today, we find them perfectly preserved, not as skeletons, but as mummies. Flesh, blood, and hair. Liuba, a 40,000-year-old baby. She looks like she just fell asleep in the mud yesterday. In 2026, we are extracting their DNA. We are piecing together the genetic code of the giants. The dream of the revival. Bringing the mammoth back to the tundra to save the planet from melting. But can we ever truly bring back the spirit of the white hell? Or are we just building a ghost? While the mammoths owned the plains, another giant claimed the darkness. Meet the cave bear. These were not the berry eaters of the modern world. These were apex titans of the underground, weighing as much as a small car. During the long winters, they would sleep for months, their bodies slowing to the edge of death to save energy. But hibernation was a dangerous game. The cave lions would enter the darkness to hunt the sleepers. A battle in a cave was a nightmare, of claws and teeth in total darkness. No escape. Only the strongest survives. On the edge of the forests, the Megalocaros appeared. The great Irish elk, with antlers spanning 4 meters. These antlers were the largest in history, a heavy burden of bone used for the ultimate display of dominance. But as the forests grew thicker, these giants were trapped by their own weapons. They couldn't move through the trees. Evolution had created a masterpiece for the open plains that became a death trap in the New World. The fall of the great elk was a signal. The open world of the Pleistocene was closing for good. The great melt was not just about water. It was a war of plants. The moss was being replaced by aggressive birches. This green invasion changed the flavor of the world. The mammoths couldn't digest the new, toxic trees. Their bodies, built for dry grass, began to fail. Malnutrition became a silent pandemic across the tundra. We followed the hunger. The human tribes moved with the dying herds, harvesting the last of the glory. We learned the art of the pit, a hole in the earth covered in branches, to break the legs of the giants. Once trapped, the giant was helpless. We didn't need to fight, we just had to wait for the gravity to do its job. It was a cold, calculated way to kill. A theft of life that ensured our children would never know hunger. But the world was also full of ghost predators. The Arctic fox, a master of invisibility in the white void. They lived on the scraps of the giants, the silent winners of the 10,000-year war. While the titans fell, the small ones adapted. They were the bridge to the world we see today. Let's talk about the ice caves of the north. Natural freezers that have kept the past fresh for eons. In 2026, these tunnels are melting, revealing the faces of the monsters as if they died this morning. It's a race against time. Once the ice melts, the DNA begins to rot. We have only hours to save the data. Inside these cells is the recipe for the White Hell, a biological software that ruled the planet. The Resurrection Lab, where we try to rewrite the ending of the 165 million year dynasty. But the mammoths are not just bodies, they are cultures. They are memories passed from mother to calf. Can a lab-born giant survive without a herd to teach it the secrets of the wind and the ice? We might be creating a creature that is the loneliest animal in the history of the world. The Pleistocene was not just a war of survival, it was a war of connection. To be alone was to be dead. This social intelligence was the true apex weapon that we shared with the giants we hunted. Let's return to the Saber-Toothed Massacre. The Smilodon populator, the largest cat to ever walk the earth. It had arms like a wrestler and a neck built to handle the torque of a 100-pound bite. It didn't bite and let go. It clamped its jaws and used its body weight to snap the victim's neck. These cats were the lords of the southern hemisphere, ruling the Amazonian plains before they were jungle. But the forest was coming for them too. Thick, humid, and full of diseases they couldn't fight. The Great Bioshift. The transition from the Ice Age to the modern world was a massacre of specialists. To be big was to be slow. To be slow was to be extinct. The world was now for the small and the fast. The Mammoth Road was becoming a graveyard of broken dreams and abandoned children. The sun was no longer a myth. It was a bright, hot reality that was erasing the White Hell. The 10,000-year reign was ending. The era of the fur-covered kings was officially over. But extinction has an echo, a chemical memory that stays in the soil for millions of years. Every molecule of your body was once part of a prehistoric monster. We are the recycled dead. Let's dive into the final storm, the last great blizzard before the Holocene dawn. The last mammoths huddled together, their trunks linked, waiting for a summer that would never end. They didn't know they were the last. They just knew they were cold. The ultimate tragedy of the giants. Then the wind stopped. The snow turned to rain. The White Hell became a green grave. The survivors, the horses, the deer, and the humans stepped out into a world that felt alien and light. We were the inheritors of the ice. We were the ones who would build cities where the saber-tooth once hunted. But deep in our bones, we still remember the cold. We still remember the giants. The White Hell is gone, but it is never truly dead. It is just sleeping beneath our feet. While the giants starved, the scavengers became the new kings. Meet the cave hyena. Their jaws were evolutionary nutcrackers, specialized to crack the frozen femurs of mammoths. They lived in bone caves, massive underground charnel houses filled with the remains of 10,000 years of death. But some giants found a way to survive the heat. The muskox, the stoic warrior of the north. It didn't run from the wolves. It formed a circle of horns, a living fortress of ancient, unyielding spirit. Their strategy was simple. Do not move. Let the enemy break themselves against your will. But the world was no longer a place for heavy armor. The era of the forest was reclaiming the earth. The mammoths became refugees on the northern islands, the last stand of the fur kings. Here, for 6,000 years after the main extinction, the giants continued to breathe the cold air. But the gene pool was shrinking. Every new birth was a genetic gamble with a high price. DNA is a crystal of memory. But on Wrangel Island, the crystal was shattering. Genetic corruption from within. The last mammoths lost their sense of smell. They couldn't even detect the scent of the flowers that were poisoning them. It was a quiet, lonely end. a kingdom of titans reduced to a handful of brothers and sisters. 4,000 years ago, the last king of the White Hell collapsed. The fire of the Pleistocene was finally extinguished. For the first time in 10,000 years, the tundra was silent. The silence was heavier than the ice. But the predators didn't survive the peace. The Smilodon, the ambush king, could not hunt in the thick, wet forests. Their specialized tools became their burden. The long sabers were useless against the small, fast deer of the new era. The last Saber-Toothed probably died in the shadows, watching a world that no longer spoke the language of the cold. We, the humans, were the only ones who found the key to the new world. We became the masters of the Great Transition. We traded our mammoth bone huts for stone and brick. We built empires where the short-faced bear once roamed. But the ghosts of the White Hell are restless. The earth is starting to sweat, and the ice is giving up its dead. In 2026, the Siberian tunnels are opening like a morgue of the gods. Every summer reveals a new titan. We don't just see bones, we see the last meal in their stomachs. We see the fear in their frozen faces. We are extracting the cold data, trillions of genetic sequences that define the biology of a lost dimension. The laboratory is the new womb. We are using modern elephants as proxies to carry the spirit of the past. Is it science, or is it a ritual? Are we fixing a mistake, or are we playing with a fire we can't control? Imagine a park in the year 2030, a place where the first mammoth calf steps out onto the reconstructed steppe. It would be the return of the king, a symbol of our power to defeat even the permanence of extinction. But it will never be the same. The original White Hell was a world of pure, unfiltered natural selection. We are the descendants of the survivors, but we have become the judges of the dead. The Ice Age taught us that the world is a fragile clock, and the clock is ticking faster than ever. As we heat the planet, we are bringing back the very world the giants died in. A world of chaos and water. History is a circle of frost and fire. A war that is won not by the strongest, but by the most adaptable. The White Hell is our shadow. It follows us into the future, reminding us of the weight of dominance. Every bone we find is a message. A story of blood, fur, and the ultimate courage to face the storm. We share the same planet, the same water, the same fate. We are the children of the giants. Respect the cold. Respect the silence. For the ice never truly forgets its masters. Thank you for taking this 40-minute journey into the darkest, coldest chapters of our planet's history. If you felt the chill of the ice, then the giants have done their job once again. Stay brave. In 2026, we are the bridge between the old world and the new. The story continues. Join us for our next epic chapter, where we will explore the forgotten before the kings. Stay curious, stay sharp, and always keep an eye on the shadows. The past is watching. This was White Hell, the full story of the 10,000-year terror. Subscribe and join our tribe as we continue to unlock the secrets of the ancient land. What would you do if you saw a mammoth in your city today? Let us know below. Knowledge is the only light in the blizzard of time. Let it shine. Special thanks to the researchers who brought these titans back to the life for us. The titans are gone, but their echo is eternal. 10,000 years and counting. Goodbye for now, from the deepest reaches of the White Hell. Sweet dreams of the ice. Power, survival, terror. This was the earth before us. They are coming back, and they are hungry. Look down. White Hell is eternal.